and hear about their family's suffering on the phone or by text message. Stella Hassan has a wife and 3 teenage daughters, all trapped inside Gaza. He says his family was living a normal life, with dreams and hopes for the future. His daughter was in university studying English and wanted to graduate, but now their hopes are shattered and their lives are destroyed. Gaza is home to 2 million people, and the only border crossing that was open before the war was destroyed on the first day of fighting, when Hamas conducted a massive surprise attack. Since then, Israel has conducted a near-constant bombing campaign on Gaza. Families have been told to evacuate some areas of Gaza, which is roughly 40 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide, but there is no way to escape. But Hassan says his family wouldn't go, even if they could. His wife, he says, tells him they want to stay in their home until they are hit by bombs and die. Aid workers say they are providing food and housing for the men, who are among thousands of workers from Gaza whose Israeli work permits were revoked after the start of the war. Isra Ghanem is a volunteer who helps provide food and support for the displaced men. She says up to 800 men stay in the building, and they try to provide support while the men hear stories of death and destruction from their families by phone. But supplies are already running low, she says, and there is limited support coming in. Israel has vowed to utterly defeat Hamas in this war, and Hamas has declared it has a plan to defend itself. Many men here say they have given up hope for a happy outcome and believe that they may never see their families again. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Ramallah, West Bank.
Listening to South Sudan in Focus from the Voice of America. Coming up, the UN says Sudan's conflict has inflicted sufferings on South Sudanese. Find out how after this break.
The question today,
how does your family take care of an elderly relative?
So we sit down with him, speak with him, ask him how he's doing so he doesn't feel lonely. Then we also tell him about what is going on in the world so that he doesn't feel left out.
we make sure we provide the basic needs like food, water, make her happy, not to feel rejected. Because when they are growing and you start to abandon them, they feel that they are not needed. And showing them love even brings them healing.
Helping them with the domestic chores, for example, preparing meals for them, helping them with the cleaning up the house.
What do you think? A daily discussion of important questions from VOA.
You are listening to South Sudan in Focus on the Voice of America. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says funding shortages is impeding efforts by aid agencies to respond to the growing needs of families affected by the conflict in Sudan. For VOA News, Charlton Doki reports from Juba. The acting UN humanitarian coordinator in South Sudan, Marie-Helen Vani, says agencies in South Sudan did not expect a huge influx of returnees and refugees from Sudan. She says aid agencies have so far recorded more than 320,000 returnees and refugees who have entered South Sudan since conflict broke out in Sudan mid-April, adding that thousands of families continue to arrive in South Sudan every day. Vani says a majority of the new arrivals need urgent humanitarian support.
And the problem with that is that as the weeks go by, people arrive with less and less resources. Their health has been more and more impacted by the situation in Sudan. And we're seeing rising rates of malnutrition, especially among children arriving from Sudan.
UN OCHA says the Sudan conflict has worsened the humanitarian situation in South Sudan, which is characterized by food insecurity, flooding, and intercommunal conflict.
The Sudan crisis has stretched a humanitarian response in South Sudan very close to breaking point. And with no end in sight, a global decrease in humanitarian funding and more new conflicts breaking out around the world, humanitarian partners are increasingly forced to deprioritize even life-saving activities.
She says the influx of returnees and some refugees has impacted lives of some South Sudanese living in the northern half of the country.